Hello, hello, hello. Crafty Chris here for another Thursday night Scrap Your Scraps. Tonight we are going to use up bits of old paper packs that have been cut into 3 by 4, well, not quite 4. Just under 4, so technically speaking, 3 by 4 pieces. So I don't remember the project I had that I was going to use this for, but I was going to use these as mats for other kinds of things, and we may still do that based on what we come up with for our cards. So what I've got here is way more than we're going to use tonight, but we're going to attack these in a number of different approaches, and using our scrap paper that we have lying around. I've just coordinated the paper as much as I could with what's happening in these different color lines. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to make at least one of each of the colors here in a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece, because obviously that's the size of a card face. So I'm just going to get my cutter out. And I'm going to use my big cutter because some of these papers are 12 by 12. And I'm just going to start with this one. This one I think is already almost 4 1/4 wide. Let me just double check. It's a little over 4 1/4 wide, so I am just going to take that down. This piece here I will use in another project. And I'm going to get my 5 1/2 inches across the top here. So there's one. I might as well do the second one, because I know I'll probably use it for something else. And this little piece will also be used on another project because it's substantial enough to put in my stash. And look, I even have a little piece on the back side, so use that piece up quite nicely. So here's my two 4 1/4. Let me just double check that. 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Yes. So we've got two red with sort of a barn-like quality to it. I'm going to do 4 1/4 here. This piece is going to go back into my stash. And let's do 5 1/2 this way. Okay, so we got two of those and a little piece for my scraps. Now I got this really deep navy blue. That's only 5 wide. No, I can't. That would show too much of the undercard, which is probably going to be white. So I'm going to do my 4 1/4 by 5 pieces, or 5 1/2 rather. There we go. So we have two dark navy with a texture on it and some pieces to go into our collection. And then I have this sort of texturized, it's not a real texture. This has a surface texture on it. You can see the texture. This one is just painted on. So it's a flat card, but with a painted texture on it. So I am going to take, this is going to go in my collection. And we're going to do that 5 1/2 again. Okay, so we got two of those dark ones. And then this is a super dark navy. Oh no, this is black. I was going to say it's very super dark. So this is black, just to see the difference. And we're going to take our 4 1/4. This goes back in my stash. 5 1/2. 5 1/2. There we go. So we have black. And we're going to get some white. And I've got two kinds of white. I've got white that has texture on it. So I have a feeling I can already tell I'm not going to like this very much because it's too stark versus what's going on there, but you never know. Maybe we can play with the treatment of this material here to make it look better. So I already got that, and I already got that. And then I have this kind of off-white cardstock that's only 5. And all right. So we're going to do 4 1/4, which gives us a good piece to put in our stash, and then by 5 1/2. Again, this is kind of a creamier color, and this is the same stuff. So I think I'm just going to pass on doing too many of those. And then I have some grays. Grays are great because they're so neutral. So this one is like almost like a beige, but it is a gray. When you put it with beige, it looks gray. So it is in my gray pile. Okay, so we have 2 grays. And here's a dark gray. So we had a light gray, now we have a dark gray. And I'm going to do a medium gray as well. So this is our medium gray. This one is flat surface, these two are textured. So 4 1/4. Didn't get much out of that, so I'm not going to keep that. Probably regret it, but oh well. Paper is not something I am shy on, that's for sure. Okay, I got that piece, I'll keep. Okay, so we got all our bases. Now I'm going to get my little cutter out because I have a feeling that I might be doing some cutting of these pieces. I can already sort of get in my mind a few ideas. Alright, so I'm going to take one of each of these colors. I'm going to split them up. This one is only 1, so I'll have to wait and see what I want to do with that one. Just split these up. Okay. Now, the reds are really important because in this package, even, when you flip through, the reds are like an orange. Whoop, out of camera there. The reds are like an orangey red. So you want to make sure you're not using your cherry reds with this because it really does kind of look, yikes, scary. Okay, so I wanted to try the same technique on a bunch of different colors. So I'm going to pull out, I've got 1 red, so maybe I'll just split these down too. I only have 1 black, I only have 1 white. You know what? I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to see how many I have. That's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to see if I have 9 of these that are the same. I'm going to start with this guy. 1, 2, 3, and I'm just kind of separating. Because if I do this, I can do it with a bunch of different ones. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And and that has some of that red in it too, as does that. That's there. It's beige. Some of the more monochromatic are a little trickier. You really do have to do something with the paper in order to make it look like something. Okay, so 4, 5. There's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Awesome. And since I'm just doing this now, let's just finish it off. So I'm just sorting these so that I can sort of figure out how to play with them when it's their turn to be used. So some of these cards will be very masculine, others not so much, because we have some sort of, you know, floral things which we kind of attribute to female. Okay, let's just put these crisscrossing. Whoops. Oh yeah, and there is the backs as well, so that's interesting. I guess how I sorted them before, I tried to give a fair number on one side and a fair number on the other side. Okay, let's get these out of the way. So we're going to use these 9 guys, and I'm going to use the same technique on all 9. Now I could simply just put it in the center of that and call it at the end of the day, but it's not very interesting to look at. So what I want to do is, I think I'm going to do diagonal cuts, and I'm going to spread it across. Now I do realize that I can leave a border around the outside, because this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I can chop that down to 4, or not chop, but I can reduce it down to like the size of where I put the paper down to 4 by 5 1/4. So keeping that in mind, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to do diagonal cuts. Now I think what I would best be doing is 1/2 inch cuts. So I am taking my paper, this is what I use to measure, and I'm putting it in the center between an inch, right? So it's at the 1/2 inch mark in between an inch, and I'm going to go 1/4 and mark, and 1/4 and mark, and the same at the bottom, so that I get a 1/2 inch strip of paper. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I do a 1/4 inch, it's just going to be, or if I start my line on the diagonal point, it will not be symmetrical when I put it all out. So now I'm just going to mark every 1/2 inch all the way down. That's an interesting little piece. And every 1/2 inch all the way down. So wait a minute, that doesn't work. I got myself gefuffled there. So what we're doing is we're doing a 1/2 inch over and down, a 1/2 inch over and down, a 1/2 inch over and down. So this little bit here should not be there. A 1/2 inch over and down in order to match the sides. And 1/2 inch over and down, over and down, over and down, over and down, And then this should work the same, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. So it's kind of weird on, and 1/2 inch. Okay. It's kind of weird because the sides are not, it's not a square. It's kind of oddly shaped. So you have to make sure you're staying in that grid. So let's line up our first cuts. And we're cutting that first 1/2 inch and taking it out of the center. So that's our center piece. And it's tricky because your brain doesn't kind of really play with it the same way. So there's our first piece. It's a 1/2 inch. Okay. Then we just keep pushing this down to the next 1/2 inch. I can't even see my mark. There it is. My mark is there. So that goes there. And then go our 1/2 inch again. Inch. Whoops, gotta be careful when you're doing it. So this guy goes there, and this 1/2 inch goes here. Watch your finger, because they do get small. And then there's a little bit that comes off the edge of this. So I'm gonna turn this around to get that little bit. There we go. And I don't want to lose it. It's a tiny little bit, but it'll finish the side. So let me just put this down so you can see what's going on here. So I have all my 1/2 inch sized pieces from one side. Of the paper. Okay, and now we're going to finish off this other side. Like that. So that's kind of cool. All right, so that's the first thing. Now I'm going to use the red because it's nice and vivid and bright. And I would kind of like to line it up. Okay, so I'm just going to put down a little bit of tape just to hold this down at the top so it doesn't shift around. And I think what I'm seeing is that, let's see what happens here. All right, so if we're going to make this work, we have to pick a dimension we're going to use to have in between each of these things. So let's just lay it out a little bit and see what happens when we give it an 1/8. And let's assume that we have the diagonal here. And in that diagonal, we want this guy to sit. And we'll have to do some measuring for that. Actually, let me just put a very vague, light diagonal line. There we go. So now it's going to be easier to sit him on there and to measure him center. There we go. I'm doing this upside down, I realize, so don't worry too much. It's going to be centered, so it's not going to be too much of a problem. Oops. So I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking an eighth of an inch is going to work okay. And it's stepping down and stepping down. So let's see what happens. This is just, like I said, it's like all about the experimental stuff. It's kind of neat how it's going on a slope there. So this is what I'm seeing in my mind as the way to put it down. Oops, this little piece is going to be challenging. Doesn't want to play. There we go. So if we do this eighth of an inch thing, so basically what I see happening here mathematically, and you may be seeing it as well, is it moves out, I want to say an eighth of an inch, it moves in going down on this side, and an eighth of an inch it moves out going on that side. So it's kind of interesting how that math plays out. So that's very cool. Okay, so let's just start putting this down on the paper. I think that's the best way to go. I thought there would be some kind of math I could, pull out of that would make this so much easier to figure out, but I am just literally going to glue it down onto the paper. Now, one of the things I can do is I can pop dot it. So I can glue it and pop dot every other one, which would make that kind of interesting. But I do want to get it centered in between the two before I get started. So I'm going to estimate and measure. So this looks to me like 1 inch, and that looks to me like 1 inch. Perfect. So I'm going to put a dot on 1 inch here. And then that's where I'm going to start my point when I glue this down. So I'm going to start with this pop dotted because I feel like that's the way to go with this. So I have 1/16 of an inch pop dots and 1/8 of an inch pop dots. So I want to do both of these and flat. I don't know how this is going to work out, but we're going to try it. So I'm just going to get my pop dotting stuff here, and I'm going to start off with a bit of a, don't need that many pairs of scissors. I'm just going to start off with a bit of an angle at my top so that it can get a little closer to the edge than just putting a squared pop dot. And I am literally going to run it down and then do the same thing at the other end. Oops. A little bit of a struggle there. There we go. So it's just one piece popped up. There's a little bit of wastage with my pop dots, but I have lots of pop dot stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to line him up with the points on my page here. Whoop, it's done at this end. So that goes there, and then it has to all align there. Not bad, a little bit off, but I don't think that will matter in the long run. So now I'm going to take the second step and I'm going to put the thin pop dot on it. So I'm just putting that aside, taking the thin pop dot. Again, I'm going to kind of get a point on it. Whoa. All right. It's hard to get this stuff off your fingers once you get it on there. And, oh, I don't need a point. I needed an angle. Oh, well. This will work out just as well. And I'm going to stick that as far up as I can go. Bring it all the way down. And cut an angle. There we go. So I have it all ready to roll. Now I want to make sure that I'm at least getting that 1/8 of an inch and I want to kind of make sure that it's about the same overhang on both sides. So I'm doing an 1/8 of an inch and a little bit of overhang on both sides. Okay. Might be a little more on one side than the other, but that's all right. This is, if I did math, then I'd have to be absolutely accurate, but I didn't do math. Okay, so now we're going to do some regular adhesive, and this one now is going to go 1/8 down from there. And so when you look at the card, it's like stepping down, right? And I think I'm going to just go flat from here on in. I could go stepping back up, but that leaves me with a little problem with this little tiny piece here. So I think I'm just going to keep it flat from here on in. And this is what experimenting is all about. There we go, sort of that. I am eyeballing the 1/8 of an inch, so I'm hoping that it's looking fairly even, and it is, so that's all good. And again. So the idea, and I'm just going to put a dot of glue on this because it's so tiny. And I do not want white because that will show. I want clear. Okay, so we have our clear. And I think I'm going to just eyeball where I think it might go. And because it's such a small piece, I'm not super worried about how much glue goes on it, but I am worried about the glue showing. There we go. All right, so that's one side. Oh, and this is kind of looking cool. Alrighty, so now we're going to do the other side, and hopefully I haven't lost the little doodad, which doesn't look like I have. Good, good, good. And now we're going to move on from here. So this one is going to be and it's already got an angle on it from when I cut it the last time, so that's pretty cool. So I'm just going to trim that angle again. go. This one's ready to go. And now, whoops, make sure I kind of play with that 1/8 of an inch there. There we go. And then I'm just going to stick this down with regular adhesive. Again, giving that 1/8 of an inch and a little bit of overhang, so we're looking good. It's kind of weird, but I like it. All right. Again with that 1/8 of an inch. And the reason I like having done this one first is because now I kind of have a sense of what diagonal cuts will do. And so we can look at doing diagonal cuts, but maybe doing sort of an interwoven thing, and it will skew everything in a diagonal. All right, so I just want a dot, and I have to turn this guy around and make sure he goes 1/8 of an inch. There we go. And there's our first card. Look how fun that is. That is so fun. Okay, so now I want to do it on a different color, like this, so you can sort of see the color in between and how it changes the look of a card. So I think I'm going to do it on a navy blue. And I'm going to get another one of my cards. And we're going to do that diagonal cutting again, so marking. It doesn't matter which way I go. Okay, so I'm starting with one point up there at the halfway mark in an inch, and the other one down here. Perfect. So over 1 inch, or 1/2 inch, over 1/2 inch, over 1/2 inch, over 1/2 inch, over. Ooh, that's interesting. 1/2 inch didn't come off. 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And that's interesting. It's going to be a different cut on this one. So 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And we didn't get far enough over there. That's cool. So 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And the same on that point. And 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. Oh, I know why. Haha! I know why. Because I didn't give a 1/4 inch on each side first. So that this would have ended up having it cut right down the center line and having things on either half. So I want it to look the same. My batteries have run out. So I'm just going to go in and re-mark that. So if something is not right, then there is a reason for it. Especially if they're the same size, right? Okay, let's try that again. So I am lining it up at the points. So 1/4 of an inch on this side, 1/4 of an inch on that side makes a 1/2 inch. 1/4 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. Now we're better. So 1/2, 1/2, half. There we go. And we got a little bit on the end there. And half, 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 and half. There we go. Oops. Half, 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 and half. All right, we're good to get this cut now. So I'm gonna I think I'll just do the center out like I did the first time. This metal bar is approximately 1/2 inch, so it helps me to sort of line up. There we go. And there we are. That side is done. Now we'll do this side. Okay, so we're done with the cutting, and now we have our little bitty bits. So we're going to do the same setup. I can erase the marks on this one. Now this is just a base card. It's not really a finish card because it needs a sentiment and all those other things. But it's just an interesting geometric. Now let's line up our center points. Draw our line. Yeah, it's there. It's very hard to see, but it is there. Get our first one, and this one I think I am going, should I do it exactly the same so we can see what it looks like? I better do that. So we're going to do the double tape. All right, and now we are going to measure our 1-inch line from the end. Ooh, it's very hard to see. Okay, there it is. And from there, I am going to line up this side. Oops. There we go. And that's our first piece on this one. All right, so now we're going to do the skinny one. Get this one out of the way. Flat one. There we go. Take that off. Estimate our 1/8 of an inch with our overage on either side. There we go. And then the rest are going to be flat. Oops. Having some malfunction on my, there we go. Again. Okay, so this is interesting. That's all lined up. Okay. Seems to be veering off radically to that one side, but I have it all lined up. So I don't know what that is. Oh well. Let's just step it back a little because I don't want it to go off the edge there. For some reason it seems to be heading that way. Okay, this is weird. So we have a conundrum. For some reason, this is veering off. Isn't that interesting? So this all kind of went sort of perpendicular to the bottoms and the corners, and this one is not for some reason, and I am kind of stymied as to how. Maybe it needs to go in the opposite direction totally, so the opposite corner. So we're going to do very gentle pulling back of the stuff to see if I need to. It looks like I've got it cut in a different angle. So when I look at the center cut of this one, do you see how they're going in the opposite direction? It's almost like it should have been cut that way. So I don't know how I switched that cut, so I'm going to have to pay more attention to that when I do my measuring. And I'm going to now do a diagonal in the opposite direction because it is not happy, or it's not going to end up in the right place, going in this direction. All right, interesting. So you have to pay attention to which side if you're wanting to have them go in the same direction. So now we're going in the opposite angle. Okay, 1 inch from the bottom. And the point is, whoops, something fell on the floor. Oops, a couple of things fell on the floor. My ruler. Excuse me. Okay, so this guy has to be perpendicular, so he's got to go this way instead of that way. Interesting. So somehow how I measured it, I changed the direction of my cut. There we go. So now we've got that square edge happening, so it should work out properly now. And this one goes this way. Give myself that 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, that's better. It's so weird. But you know what? There's often surprises in crafting. And there we go. So you have two versions. You got the blue and you've got the red, going in opposite directions, mind you. So let's turn them both right side up. So there we go. So now they're both right side up and they're just going in two opposite directions. Lesson learned here. Pay attention to where you're marking, and if you're trying to do identical, make sure you're doing the identical marking. So this is two backgrounds. Which do I like? I don't know. I kind of like them both. I think I'm more partial to the darker one than the red one. Don't know why, but I'm liking that darker color through that cutaway. All right, let's try something slightly different. So we are going to do a gray. Let's do the light gray. That's this guy that's fairly gray. And we're going to do the black. So we have high contrast. And this time I'm going to do a double weave of the same. So I'm going to be cutting two of each. So let's see how this will work. So we're going to do 1/2 inches. All right, so this is the weave that's going to go in one direction. So let's put this laid out over here. Sorry, I'm moving so fast my camera's having a hard time catching up. So there we go, we got that goes there. There we go. And this guy should go over there. Okay, so we have this going vertical, and now we're going to take this and do 1/2 inches going horizontal. Alrighty, get this out of the way. And let's do our horizontal version. So that goes there, that goes there, that goes there, and there. Those two go there, that goes there, that goes there. All right, so we have our horizontal and our vertical. Now we're going to start with the horizontal pieces, and I'm going to spread them out. So I am just going to tape this guy down. I'm going to do it upside down because I'm going to be gluing them down here. So I want to tape this down into my grid. I don't know where my little tape went. So I'll find another one. So I'm centering it basically. And here's some tape. I'm going to tape that there so it doesn't shift too much. And now I'm going to start with my centerpiece going right in the center. But that's not really a centerpiece. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? So I'm going to move him over there. Move him over there. And move him over here. So we are going to have to do this. So my thinking here is that I want to have like these pieces a little bit higher at the bottom and the top, just a bit higher. And I really want to see some of the paper in between. because that's kind of like the whole point. So let's just play this a little bit. Oh, I need to go in there. So if we had this guy here like this and this, and maybe a 1/16 of an inch separated, so it's not so out of the ordinary. And then let's go here. Where are my numbers here? So 2, 2. So then we can have like this one going woven in and woven in, leaving that 1/16 of an inch. So you get sort of a double image. I think that's the way I want to go. And then this would be woven in, and then that would be woven in, and then that would have to be woven in. So that's interesting. So I need to actually start with him, and that would be woven in, and then that would be woven in. All right. Okay, we're going to do this off the paper. So here's the play. All right, I have some long strips of tape, and I am going to start by just turning the tape over on each end and laying it on my mat. So that's my first start point. I'm going to take my long pieces and I'm going to put them in order again so that I don't mess up the order. So there's our order. I'm going to start laying them out here. And I'm going to leave that 1/16 of an inch because I feel like I may have to make that an 1/8 once I start getting paper woven through it. All right, and then this guy is going to end up being woven over the bottom. So we'll put him right at the bottom edge there. And then this guy, we are going to weave every other one. Oh, we didn't put this in order. Let's put this in order first. Awkward. Sorry. There's probably some fantastic way I could do this differently. In now. So once you're in, you're in. In. That goes at the top. That goes here. And that goes right in there. Okay. So this is the bottom piece. It's going to go over those guys. This one is going to get woven. I'm just going to start for the sake of argument over, under, over, under. And we're going to bring that down with a 1/16 of an inch opening. You know what I'm thinking? I think I'm going to bypass the spaces and just try to get the thing woven together so that it's a woven piece that looks like one piece. So there we go. So my brain just keeps shifting. Okay, so if we have this piece, let's get these pieces here. So this piece and this piece are the same, so they should, let's just glue them together. Didn't need quite that much glue, but that's okay. Squeeze out some of it. There we go. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, this is as if it's one piece of paper, but you're going to see that it weaves together. So then the next piece is going to attach on top of this strip as if it's one of those strips. So we're just going to put a little bit, whoops, again, too much glue. It's hot here. Things are schmooking out. There we go. So you can start to see what's happening here. I'll just bring it closer to the camera. There we go. So it's two different papers, one on top of the other, but it looks like it's the same paper when you're far away. All right, then the next one is return. There we go. So this one's going to go underneath, and the A and everything's going to line up like it's supposed to. So we put that, and we line up the A. There we go. Give it just a smidgen of space. All right. Okay. So now it looks still like it's one piece of paper, even though this is behind and this is on top. And then registered is our next thing that's going to go down. And we're lining that up. And you can see it looks like the plane is aligned. And then the next strip, oh, doesn't go on top. It goes underneath. And we align everything so it looks like it's all one piece. Making sure that it aligns at the bottom as well. There we go. So you can see it's on top and underneath, and on top and underneath. And then the last piece is just going to be a little bit off because we left some space to allow for weaving. So this is going to be just a tiny bit off. But I don't think you'll notice when your brain puts it all together. And there we have it. Looks cool, right? So now this piece is going to get woven opposite. So we're just going to do that quickly. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to push it down as deeply as we can into the weave. And it's not going to be perfect. We know that already. Because this is showing, we're going to pull it a little more this way. There we go. And we'll put a little bit of stuff under there. Keep it down. this side, we'll put a little under there. Push it down. And there you have the second row that's woven in. Okay. And then we're going to go under, over, under, over, wait a minute. Did I miss something there? Under, over, under, over, under, over. Yes. So that's good. And now we're going to push that down as far as we can so that it gets close to the knight. And we can pull that out just a tiny bit more. There we go. And stick that under. There we go, making sure it's nice and tight. You need quick dry glue. And we'll do the same thing here. There we go. Take our next row, and now we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under. And the things to line up here are the words. And the words are going to be tough to line up because we are getting a little bit of a gap where the paper pressure is, but it still reads as letters. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to do the top one first. Okay. And then the bottom one. There we go. All right. Then our next one is going to go under, over, under, over, under. And sometimes you just have to pull some of them ahead a little bit so you can push down. Oops, too far. There we go. That's as close as I can get it on the letters here. Try and push a little bit further down. All right, so we're starting to show it that it's getting off. It's okay. It's bound to happen. Just make sure that we go as far as we can. And then there we are. Okay, it looks still like one piece. Next one, we're going over, under, over, under, over, and under. And now we're getting quite a bit away from what we need to be, but that's all right. Kind of looks cool. I'm going to stick down this front side first. There we go. this side down. There we go. And then we're doing under, over, under, over, under, and over again. Pulling our paper to the front so we can get that down as deep as possible and as close to the words as we can. Okay, that's why that's not working so well. There we go. And we're going to do our front piece first. Make sure that's down as far as it can go. And it's lined with the edge. Sorry, I took it away because I had to see what I was doing there. There we go. And now we're going to do this guy at this end. This is taking a little longer, this whole weaving process. All right. And then we're going to put in our final one, which is over, under, over, under, over, under, and we are considerably off at that point, but I'm okay with it because it more or less maintains the same look. So I'm going to put some glue on the back side. Make sure I get it pushed in properly. Here we go. And then some glue on the front side. Push that down. And there's our finished woven piece. I think it looks very cool. All right, and now we have to mount it. All right, so let's think about mounting this. I think I would like to pop dot it, and because it's all sort of one piece, I'm gonna get my big pop dots, and I am going to just tear pieces off and put them at the corners. And then piece sort of in the middle there. I don't think I need much more than that. And we're going to put that on the gray. And again, these are just considered bases for us to put something else on it, some kind of a sentiment or something. And they're very masculine, I'm noticing. In fact, with this one, I think I might even take a black pen. I'm using a 01 pen, and I'm just gonna get these things out of my way. Just gonna run a line along the edge. I don't care if it's straight or not, and it's gonna cross over at the bottom corner. I'll show you when I give you a close-up of what's going on, just to give it a bit of a finality. Okay. So I just let the corners cross over. And it's very sketchy line, but it kind of gives it a bit more of an anchor. And, you know, looking at it there, I might even just go, might use like a 0.03 instead of a 0.01 because the one is a bit thin. So when you're doing an overlay, let me find my 0.3. Sorry, it'll take me 1 second. That's an 01, that's an 01. Okay, so this is a 0.3. Put that one back. It's a little bit too thin. You just want to go slowly because you're literally now tracing over the original line. So you want to make sure that you don't go off the line. Before it didn't matter because there was nothing to follow and you're doing kind of a rigidy line anyway. There we go. That gives a bit more of an oomph to it. Whoops, went over there. Eeks. So I'm going to slow down just a little bit more. Ugh. It's not perfect, but that's okay. There we go. That looks a little bit better weighted now as the gray kind of just went off into the ether. So I like that. I am going to do this again, but for the black card, but I won't put you through the pain of going through all the steps with me. And I think I'm going to start in the middle and go from the middle out so that we don't have so much there and then nothing here. So I'll show you what that means when we come back. Okay, I'm back. So I attacked this woven piece a little differently than I did with this one. I think it looks a little bit more true to form. So what I did was I used the outside long piece and I started the two inner pieces of the horizontal ones on that piece and left a 32nd of an inch actually. So there was a little space for paper, and then I just spread it out and made sure it was nice and tight. And it's still off. I mean, it's going to be off no matter how you look at it, but when you look at it as an overall image, it still holds together quite well. Now, one error I made was if you look here, you can see open dots between the paper, and that's because I didn't push. This was my first piece, that was my second piece. I didn't push it far enough up, and that did cause some havoc down here, and especially with the ending piece. So, you know, if my takeaway from this is if you do it carefully and you start from the middle and work out, you could even try starting from the middle longwise and working out that way as well. And you should get pretty close, or at least something that looks like it's a comprehensive piece. And when you look closely at it, you realize that it's not embroidered, it is woven. All right, so I'm just going to get this on my black background. Just tearing off pieces here. There we go. To the side. Okay, so here's my black background. And I'm just going to take my dog hair off and line it up more or less centered. There we go. Now, I'm going to take a red paint pen. Get my paint markers out here. I'm going to take deep red, and I'm going to make sure I shake it. It's always good to store your paint pens on their side. Just make sure it's going well. And I'm going to do the same sort of thing I did with the white, but using red. You can't really see it very well at the moment, but I will show you when I'm done. And again, you're just doing a line. It doesn't matter if it's super accurate, super straight. It does take a minute for this to dry. And there you have your black. So we have a black. Maybe I'll just tone that down a bit. There, you can see that red a little better. And you have your two backgrounds now. So we have done these two cards and these two cards. I think I'm going to try to squeeze one more set of cards out as options for you today. So this time I think we're going to do middle gray. Do I want to do it on white? I just fear the weight. It's not too bad actually. I'm going to do, let's see, I've got kind of a light one, so, and I've got kind of a dark one. Maybe I'll do middle gray, or do I want to do this because it has an interesting background? Okay, this is what we're doing. Alrighty. Okay, so what are we going to do with these two? Got some nice card bases for next time. All right. So we've gone diagonal. And we've gone vertically and horizontally, but we haven't done squares. So let's do some squares. I would hesitate to do circles. I think you need straight edges and pointed corners just because of the nature of the pattern that is on this. So I'm going to grab, and I'm going to do 1-inch squares. So 1-inch squares, there we go. And now we're going to put this back in. Line it all up. This is just me not wanting to do more than one cut. Just make it all line up. There's one set. So I'm just going to poke those up there. Turn this slightly so you can see what I'm cutting. And down to 2. There we go. I have to figure that out. And line up the 1 inches. Okay, and there we go. All right. So let's get the bottoms together and the tops together. All right, bottoms and tops. And then we have 2 rows of middle pieces. So we know this guy probably goes here. And that guy looks like he goes there. 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 And there. There we go. Okay. So this is a 4 1/4 by 5. I want to leave, I'm going to try it with 1/4 inches. So let me bring it into view here. So we're going to leave 1/4 inches in between each piece. So that overall will leave us with a nice border. So that looks like a 3/8 border all the way around. Perfect. And let's see if it's the same here. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'm just going to move that to the side. I'm going to draw some light lines on my paper. And a pencil. There we go. And I'm going to draw 3/8 of an inch, which starts about there. So look about right. And I'm just going to do a light line. 3/8 of an inch in here as well. Okay. And 3/8 of an inch on this end. There we go. Could have done it on the other side, but I didn't. And 3/8 on this end. All right. Now, do I want to pop things up and down, up and down? I think I may want to pop some things. So let's just lay this out so we can see what's going on here. And here, here, and here, here, here. Alrighty. I'm liking that. And you know what? I think I'm going to keep the whole thing flat just because I want to be able to put a nice embellishment on here and a title. So I'm going to start by lining these guys up. And I can use my regular tape runner for this. And I'm going to go right in the corner, covering up my pencil. There we go. Do it on the other side as well. Go right in, covering up my pencil. There we go. Whoops. A little bit of tape too close to the edge there. There we go. Just get rid of that. Now I'm just going to take a look before I do anything else and make sure those are lining up properly. Yep, they look good. Alrighty. Now I'm just going to eyeball this part. There we go. That looks good to me. Covering up. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Covering up that line. There. That looks pretty reasonable to me. Okay, now I'm going to do the top edge and corner. So right in the corner, covering up that pencil line. There we go. And then this is going to center on that. That looks pretty good to me. There we go. And I'm just going to double check that that all sits nicely. Yep. Okay, and we're going to finish. Whoops, what happened there? There we go. These are our center guys. Oh, so I'm going to put these two guys on first, covering up that pencil, making sure they line up nicely. Yep. Oh, all right. So I'm just going to eyeball this for a minute. I'm not going to press hard. I didn't mean to actually put weight on it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to eyeball it. Okay, I don't have to actually eyeball it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to prop my ruler up against this paper, and then I am going to line up like that. And I can do the same thing with this one. I just have to pay attention to making sure that the paper is flat against the side of the ruler. Let's see, that's looking pretty good. All right, now we'll do the bottom one. Same way, using the top. The further away you get using the piece of paper as the line you butt up to with your ruler, the trickier it is because there is variance. Now let's see if that looks reasonable. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, and then we just have these guys to scooch in. And so I'm going to do this. And before I press it down, I just want to make sure it's lined up pretty well. If I can feel the papers all touching. Yep, that's good. And this one. Just want to make sure that's all lined up. And there we have it, all nicely gridded. And I like that because it gives you the same image. Oh, except I have that one upside down. Good thing it doesn't go permanent right away. Try not to bend your paper. There we go. It's a good thing I caught that. All right. So it just looks like this piece, but it's been expanded. So now this is ready to use a nice embellishment on the front with a word. This becomes just texture in the background. So I like that very much. And I think I'm still going to put that black line around it. I kind of like how that gives a border to the page. And this time I think I'm going to do stitching. And stitching is kind of the same as what you do with a line, except you just go little dashes. And they don't have to be absolutely perfect. You just want to avoid little curly cues on it, which I got there. And I think I'm going to try and go this way. Sometimes going across the bottom is easier, sometimes going across the top is easier. So you'll figure out what is easy for you. There we go. So that just gives it a little bit of a finished edge. All right. And now we're going to do the same process to our last one. I am going to go off screen and get this done for you so you don't have to watch me do that again. Okay, so I am all cut up here. I have the papers cut, spread out, so we can start that process again. And I think I said 3/8 of an inch was what we were doing before. Now, this is a textured surface, so I'm just a bit concerned that I won't be able to erase it accurately enough. So I am just going to put let me start there. I am just going to put a mark at 3/8 of an inch at the top and bottom. Okay, and then same thing. And that's just so I can use my ruler this time a little more and not get pencil in the grooves, because the texture will be very tricky to... I can't even show you the texture. Oh, there we go. So the texture will be very tricky to erase at the end. All right, so let's start sideways. We're going to start with him, 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 and him. Not that. So even so, I'm going to start with the top one, I think, because then I can hold it on the lines. So I am definitely going to have to rely on the dots and pushing this up against. So this is going to be a little trickier, especially if I'm losing parts. Okay. So it's a good thing I'm using tape runner, because it doesn't get permanent for a little bit of time. Right, so now I'm lining up my dots, putting pressure. There we go. That doesn't look bad. So I'm going to do that this way, because I seem to be able to see better. There's my dots lined up. Forgot to do this. Oh, pardon me. So now I want to make sure that I got pressure there. All right, let's see if we line that up fairly well. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now we can finish off the two other ones just by lining up. And remembering we have a 1/4 of an inch between them. So a little bit. So 1/4 of an inch, lining everything up. There we go. There we go. How are we looking? Looks not bad. This to me is a tiny bit crooked. Just that slightly. And I feel like that space is larger and this is smaller. Move it just a tiny bit. Just make sure they all touch and they seem to. Okay, so now we're going to do this corner. So this is the top. This is the corner we want. All right, and there is our finished background. I'm going to leave, am I going to leave it white? I'm going to take a thin blue marker. I don't really have a color that is quite that dark. Ah, yes, here we go. Don't really have an navy. This is going to be too bright, so I think I'm going to stick with the orangey red. I'll just put those to one side. And this time I'm going to do a double line. But before I do that, I'm going to find my eraser under all this mess. I have lost my little tiny bit of eraser. Oh, there it is. And I'm just going to take off those little marks. Because even though they're tiny, I can see them. Now, when we draw our line, we're going to use a ruler for this one because I've got bumpy divots in my paper and I don't trust that my hand is going to be straight enough, and also because I want to do 2 lines, not just 1 line. So I am going to do my first line at 1/8 of an inch, which is around there, and I'm just gonna go right from top to bottom. Okay, then I'm going to do my second line just in from there. Sorry, let me get my lines lined up again. And there we go. So double lines, starting 1/8 from the edge and going from one side all the way to the other side, and then moving in 1/8 and going from one side to the other side. There we go. Alrighty, and there we go. So let's take a look at what we've done so far. I think we're going to stop there for tonight. You can keep going. You can do this with any of the other colorways. You notice that I had pieces of other colorways that we could have used as well. So this is a great way to build some backgrounds. These ones are more masculine, so they allow you a little, I'm just going to raise up a tad so you can see, they allow you a little bit more male options. And then actually I should probably put them this way so they're a little bit spread out, and you can see what's going on here. And there you go. You have your 4 backgrounds of using the same background scrap paper with scrap papers from your collection, and all you do is mount these onto your cards. There is enough room to trim them down if you choose to have your card base showing through, if your card base is another color or white or whatever, or off-white. So there's still lots of room on these to trim them down if you choose to. We've done some edging on them to just give you that option as well. So great basis to get you started on some more masculine looking cards. And that is it for me tonight. So I am going to say see you next week. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe below. Bye now.